Welcome back. President Trump just landing back after his trip to New Jersey. Let's listen into what he's saying.
Do business in our country, not a fair deal. So the European Union is talking to us. They want to open up their country. I would say Japan to a much lesser extent in terms of opening up their country. Japan, as you know, and we're very close to Japan, but they sell us millions and millions of cars a year. We sell them no cars because they won't accept our cars. And they won't accept much of our agriculture either. So, but they're all changing their ways very, very rapidly. South Korea wants to make a deal other than tariffs. Right now, as you know, they're paying a substantial tariff, but they want to make a difference. So some of these deals, maybe I'll change them and maybe I won't. But our country is making a lot of money for the first time in a long time, in decades. And that's the way it should be. We have a country that's, and I said it the other day to you people, we have a country that was dead. It was dead. It was a goner 1 year ago, and now we have the hottest country in the world. Okay, questions?
It seems like it's taking off about $40 billion that would go to illegal benefits. What does that mean to the bottom line that we're taking away a lot of the fraud and abuse to illegal?
Getting rid of a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. One of the reasons I think that you'll see the numbers start to be very good for the country, but I think more than anything else, we have tariffs coming in the will be hundreds of billions of dollars. Gaza, we are talking, and hopefully we're going to get that straightened out over the next week. Let's see what happens.
So Gavin Newsom is fighting. Gavin Newsom's fighting to keep men and women's sports. He's fighting with Bondi, McMahon. As a father, as a husband, does he hate women? Why does he want men and women's sports so badly?
No, I don't know if he hates women, but look, he thinks it's good politically, I guess. He's just saying Gavin Newsom wants to keep men and women's sports. Nobody understands it. Very few. I say it's a 3% issue. You know, they say it's 80-20. It's not 80-20. I think it's 97-3.
So Rosie O'Donnell, she went on Chris Cuomo's show recently. She blames you for the fact that she's overweight, depressed, and drunk. What do you say to that? Do you think PDS is going to ever be a DSM-5 diagnosis?
I don't know about Rosie. I watch Rosie. Rosie's a mess. She's a mess. But she left our country, which is a good thing, not a bad thing. Yeah. Well, I'm going to have a meeting with the Secretary General who's coming in tomorrow. But we basically are going to send them various pieces of very sophisticated military, and they're going to pay us 100% for them. And that's the way we want it. And we've been trying to get that again. I don't think Biden ever asked for it. We're in for about $350 billion. Europe is in for $100 billion. That's a lot of money, 100, but they should be in actually for more than us. So as we send equipment, they're going to reimburse us for that equipment. Doesn't that sound good? That's the way it should have been a long time ago. I haven't agreed on the number yet, but they're going to have some because they do need protection. But the European Union is paying for it. We're not paying anything for it, but we will send it. It'll be business for us, and we will send them Patriots, which they desperately need, because Putin really surprised a lot of people. He talks nice, and then he bombs everybody in the evening. So there's a little bit of a problem there, and I don't like it. Oh, I think so. I did. I spoke to him today. Dan Bongino, very good guy. I've known him a long time. I've done his show many, many times, and he sounded terrific, actually. No, I think he's in good shape.
I was going to ask you, on this one-year anniversary of Butler, what was going through your mind this morning, Mr. President, as you woke up to start this new day?
Will you repeat that question?
On this one-year anniversary of Butler, what was going through your mind this morning when you woke up? I know that you're praising God you're alive, but a lot of people want to know how you're taking this day on this one-year anniversary.
God was protecting me. Maybe because God wanted to see our country do better or do really well, make America great again. But God was protecting me, Brian. I'll tell you, it's the more you think about it, the more you see it. But no, I don't like to think about it much. You know, I have a job to do, so I don't like to think about it much. It's a little bit of a dangerous profession being president, but I really don't like to think about it too much.
You were able to
I think you're better off not thinking about it.
And you were able to accomplish 20 promises so far.
Yeah, and I think we've more than delivered. Thank you for saying that. But, you know, we made a lot of promises, and we've actually given a lot more promises than we even made.
Yeah.
And you add on that a tremendous success with the strike that we had, getting rid of nuclear weapons in Iran. That was a big, big strike. And, you know, when the pilots came to my office, they were there, as you know, with some of the other people having to do with that strike. And they said something very interesting. They said, you know, we've been practicing this for 22 years, but no president had the guts to tell us to do it. But this has been on our minds for many, many years, and we did it. And I would say from 0 to 10, with 10 being the best, that attack was a 15.
What do you think about this new bill that's going to basically eliminate no capital gains tax on home sales to be able to free up the money? People who've owned a house for a long time can't afford to pay the capital gains.
Yeah, well, we're looking at that, and it's going to be, it could be a very big positive. I don't think for you, because you make so much money, it doesn't matter. But I think it's going to be a great, a great incentive for a lot of people that really need money.
So between that and Jerome Powell stepping down, that could really boost home sales.
Well, I think if Jerome Powell stepped down, it would be a great thing. I don't know that he's going to, but he should. Jerome Powell's been very bad for our country. We should have the lowest interest rate on earth, and we don't. He just refuses to do it, and yet he's spending $2.5 billion rebuilding the Fed, the Federal Reserve building. And I don't know what he knows about building, but you talk about cost overrun. So he got this approved, and he started the work during the Biden administration. And he doesn't look like the kind of a guy, frankly, that wants to spend $2.5 billion. And it's very interesting because out of 71 economists, one person, me, and then one other person, I think from Wharton, got it right, and the others were all wrong in terms of the success of our country this quickly. We have no inflation. We have cash pouring in. It was me and somebody else. And I can tell you, I don't need 5,000 people working for me behind the scenes like Jerome Powell to tell him what he should say once a month, because they got it wrong. The Fed got it wrong. I call him too late. He's always too late. Every point cost us $360 billion. Think of that. And we should be 3 points. That's almost $1 trillion. Approximately $1 trillion less we should be just with the signing of a piece of paper. So we'll see what happens. I mean, you're telling me he's going to quit. I hope he quits. I don't know that he's going to quit, but he should quit because he's been very bad for the country.
On Russia, are you going to be announcing sanctions on Russia tomorrow?
We're going to see what we will see tomorrow, okay? We have the Secretary General. As you know, Europe has announced sanctions. But I am very disappointed with President Putin. I thought he was somebody that meant what he said, and he'll talk so beautifully, and then he'll bomb people at night. We don't like that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
And that was President Donald Trump there at Joint Base Andrews, returning back on his way to the White House from his weekend in New Jersey. A couple of top lines there. He ended talking once again about Vladimir Putin, and he had said earlier in his words that Putin talks nice and bombs everyone in the evening. He said he doesn't like it. He's very disappointed. And then he reiterated the news we do know, which is he will be meeting with the Secretary of NATO tomorrow as they talk about how to move forward with Ukraine and Russia, and also about this plan that they've put together. The president just talking about it there, that they will be selling these weapons to NATO countries who will then be sending them into Ukraine and supporting Ukraine. We also heard him talk about Dan Bongino, the deputy director of the FBI, who has, according to our reporting, pondered quitting over the Epstein memo, and the Attorney General Pam Bondi, how she's handled this, that they won't be releasing any more documents. He said that he talked to Bongino today, and that in President Trump's word, he was in good shape. And he also took another swipe at the Fed chair, Jerome Powell. He continues to amp up those attacks on Jerome Powell, whom he appointed to run the Fed, and said he should step down, that he hoped he quits. I want to bring in Kevin Liptak from the White House. Kevin, the president, as he often does when he takes questions like this, answering a number of questions on a number of issues. What stood out to you as as we look ahead to this week and this promise also that he's going to have a very big announcement on Russia coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, and the president making it out to be an announcement about those Patriot missile systems that in his telling will be sold to European countries. Those European countries then will transfer them onward to Ukraine. And I think it's just notable this continuing frustration that you hear from the president towards the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, essentially accusing him of duplicity. He's using less profane words than he did last week when he accused Putin of peddling BS. He used the full word, but of using BS, and then going on to bomb Ukraine. The president clearly making his case that Ukraine continues to require American assistance and American defensive weapons, but laying out this scheme that will sort of insulate him from accusations that he's going against his campaign promises by sending more aid to Ukraine, using these European countries as essentially a conduit to get those weapons that he says Kyiv very much needs to the ground, to the Ukrainians to help defend themselves. Notably, he did stop short of saying that he would support new sanctions on Ukraine. We just heard earlier today from the senators, bipartisan group of senators who are proposing this package of sanctions that would essentially put new punishment on Moscow. The president not going as far as saying that he would support that quite yet, but clearly very frustrated with his counterpart in the Kremlin. And then on Dan Bongino, I think very interesting that the president said he spoke to him today. He said that Bongino sounded terrific. He said he was in good shape. He recalled the many times that he had appeared on Dan Bongino's podcast, essentially making clear in the public that Bongino is still sort of with him in a sense. But I will note that we haven't heard from Bongino himself just yet. This is all in President Trump's telling as he tries to quell this political crisis, this splintering of his MAGA base. He says things are essentially fine with his deputy FBI director, but I think we will need to wait to hear from Bongino himself to make sure that that is actually true.
Yes, we will. All right, Kevin Liptak from the White House, thank you so much for that reporting. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more CNN Newsroom. Talks over a possible ceasefire in Gaza appear to be at an impasse at the moment, but tonight President Trump's Middle East envoy says he remains hopeful. Steve Witkoff confirming he's meeting today with Qatari negotiators. An Egyptian official familiar with the talks tells CNN, though, that they have stalled, saying Israel is adding new demands. We are joined now by Michael Allen. He served as a senior national security advisor and special assistant to President George W. Bush. Michael, thanks so much for being here with us. Really appreciate it. Israel and Hamas trading blame here over why these talks have stalled. But one of the key sticking points is the lines to which IDF forces will withdraw in Gaza. And that has been a sticking point for many months now. How do they begin to bridge these gaps, or is this just impossible?
It's really difficult to do. I think when you boil it all down, what the real impasse is that Hamas only has the leverage of the hostages. And if they give those hostages up, they feel like Netanyahu is for him to forswear further use of force within Gaza. And Netanyahu, that's his red line. He says he must go in and complete the destruction of Hamas. So when we talk about where the IDF will be stationed, what land within Gaza will the IDF continue to hold to Hamas, that looks like the IDF and Netanyahu are creeping up on them to try and destroy them. And so they pause and they don't enter this ceasefire, which might lead to the release of numerous Israeli hostages.
Yeah. And Steve Witkoff said in his words he's hopeful, and Trump just told reporters just a few moments ago he thinks maybe a deal could happen this week. Knowing what you just laid out, do you think that's a fair assessment of the situation right now?
Well, it's hard to say without having more detail, but it doesn't really seem in the offing right now just because they are at loggerheads on this primary issue of the security and future of Gaza. I think the thing that's lacking from the Israeli point of view is if they had some alternative to Hamas that might somehow govern or be a competitor to Hamas within the Gaza Strip, that may give Netanyahu some flexibility, some strength to say, you know what, I can give a little bit on security, because it may not be that Hamas will then dominate the Gaza Strip. But in the absence of some other security force, some other Arab or Palestinian security force, I think we kind of continue dancing around the core issues here. We may get to a ceasefire at some point, but I don't think it's going to be the complete and final deal that so many people are after.
Yeah. And look, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was in Washington meeting with the president last week. A lot of people had eyes on that meeting, those various meetings, and the week at large, just to see how it would go, that they could be a very pivotal week. How do you think that all played out?
Well, I think Netanyahu was definitely taking a bit of a victory lap here in Washington. He went up to the Congress. He had his sit down with the president. He told the president that he had nominated him for a Nobel Peace Prize, of course. But I think what he was looking for was additional strength on the Israeli scene, an embrace by President Trump to stand with him so that Netanyahu might be able to stand alone and say to the Israeli people, I'm trying to get a deal with Hamas, but they aren't letting me. And so far, Trump hasn't seemed to say, at least in public, come on, Netanyahu, you've got to give more, you've got to give more. I think he's probably saying that behind the scenes, because I know at the end of the day, Trump is impatient and wants Gaza to come to some sort of settlement. But I do think that Netanyahu is trying to see through all of this. I've also heard, however, that we need to put more pressure on Hamas. They are dragging their feet a bit. They are always raising additional issues that might be considered minor and dilatory, if you will. So there's a lot going into these complicated negotiations.
And do you see any way in which the U.S. can put additional pressure on the parties?
I do think if the president were to begin to say in public, and generally speaking, I don't think it's a great idea to try and hotbox the Israelis into a corner. But I think if he were able to say just, hey, in public a little bit, Netanyahu, you've had tremendous success against Iran. You've had tremendous success against Hezbollah. You've virtually smashed Hamas. Now I think you can lean a little forward. Now you have all this new political capital to spend. You have greater standing amongst the Israeli people. So therefore, Netanyahu might be able to go out further on a limb and strike some sort of deal, because he wouldn't have to worry about the right wing of his coalition government collapsing necessarily. But that is what we have to calculate. That's what Netanyahu has to calculate, his own political survival, while he tries to find sort of a great security solution for the Israeli state. So it's very, very complicated. I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence that we're on the verge of any sort of breakthrough this week or soon.
All right, Michael Allen, thanks for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
There is Alligator Alcatraz, the controversial facility in the Florida Everglades. Reporting from the Miami Herald, Tampa Bay Times says hundreds of immigrants who are facing detention there have no criminal convictions or pending charges in the U.S. The newspaper additionally reports 747 migrants are either being detained at the facility or are set to be transferred there. CNN's Rafael Romo is joining us now with more. What else have you discovered, Rafael?
Well, Jessica, you may remember that when President Donald Trump toured the migrant detention facility in the Florida Everglades earlier this month, he said that it would very soon house some of the most menacing migrants. He said some of the most vicious people on the planet. But a new report published Sunday suggests that may not be the case. Hundreds of immigrants with no criminal charges in the United States are being held at Alligator Alcatraz, according to this investigation by the Miami Herald and the Tampa Bay Times, which obtained obtain records about the migrants being held there. According to the report, there are more than 250 people who are listed as having only immigration violations but no criminal convictions, who are being held together with those accused and convicted of crimes. The report, Jessica, says only a third of the detainees have criminal convictions, with charges that range from attempted murder to illegal re-entry into the United States, as well as traffic violations. The information comes from a list of more than 700 migrants who are either already being held at the tent facility or are scheduled to be transferred there. And for the first time since the facility opened earlier this month, Florida elected officials and members of Congress had access to the Migrant Detention Center on Saturday, including Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who called the facility a, quote, internment camp and described it as appalling. But in an interview on CNN's State of the Union with Dana Bash, White House border czar Tom Homan dismissed the claims, suggesting the Democratic lawmakers' complaints about conditions at Alligator Alcatraz are politically motivated. Jessica?